Hideo Kojima is finally returning to horror. His new game, simply titled OD, has already generated waves of intrigue, speculation, and fear. But ever since it was first teased, people can't help but compare it to PT, the now legendary playable teaser that left a permanent mark on horror gaming. Today we're going to break down everything we know about OD, explore the inevitable ties to PT, and talk about why this project might be Kojima's shot at redemption after the fallout from Silent Hills. OD, also known as Overdose, is Hideo Kojima's upcoming horror game developed by Kojima Productions and published by Xbox Game Studios. It's being built in Unreal Engine 5, which already gives us a sense of the scale Kojima is working with. Instead of using the proprietary Decima engine that powered Death Stranding, Kojima has embraced Unreal's photorealism tools, including Epic's metahuman technology, to create digital performances that blur the line between real actors and in-game characters. The cast is another strong indicator of the direction OD is heading in. Sophia Lillis, Hunter Schafer, and the legendary Udo Kier are all confirmed to play key roles. Kojima is treating these performances not just as voiceovers, but as fully captured cinematic portrayals. He's repeatedly emphasized that OD is not just another game, it's an experiment in new media that fuses film, interactive entertainment, and psychological storytelling into something players haven't quite seen before. At the core of OD is the concept of fear itself. Kojima has explained that the project is about testing your fear threshold, the point where fear becomes overwhelming. The idea of overdosing on fear is central to the game's DNA, and the subtitle of the most recent teaser, Knock, reflects one of Kojima's own personal fears, the sound of a knock at the door. Rather than a straightforward story-driven game, OD is being framed as an anthology project with different sections possibly created in collaboration with other major figures in horror. Kojima has even described the approach as assembling the Avengers, hinting that we'll see diverse creative visions united under one unsettling theme. The clearest look we've had at OD came from the most recent teaser titled Knock. The trailer opens with an unsettlingly simple image, a card sliding under a closed door, the kind of mundane act that becomes sinister when stripped of context. We then see Sophia Lillis' character in a dim, ritualistic setting. She lights candles in what looks like preparation for some kind of occult ceremony or awarding ritual. Kojima has already clarified that this isn't a game about candles, meaning what we're seeing is symbolic rather than mechanical. As the sequence unfolds, the tension rises. A knock at the door echoes in the silence, and with it comes dread. Suddenly, the visuals began to glitch. We see distortions, redacted overlays, and strange textual interference, almost as if the footage itself is corrupted. The knock repeats, and the feeling is that the door is no longer a barrier, but an invitation to something unspeakable. What makes this teaser stand out is how much it relies on atmosphere. There are no loud jump scares, no monsters leaping into frame. Instead, it leans on sound design, environmental stillness, and the suggestion that something terrible is about to happen. That reliance on subtle psychological dread is why so many people immediately thought of PT the moment the teaser dropped. To understand why the PT comparisons are inevitable, we need to go back to 2014. PT, short for Playable Teaser, was released on PlayStation 4 by Konami. It placed players in a single looping hallway, repeating over and over again with small changes each time, subtle shifts in sound, light, and object placement that built unbearable tension. It was, at the time, a revolutionary approach to horror design. Only after players solved its cryptic puzzle did the twist reveal itself. PT was a teaser for a new Silent Hill game, co-directed by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, and starring Norman Reedus. The cancellation of Silent Hills was devastating to fans, but PT had already etched itself into gaming history. It became one of the most talked about horror experiences ever made, and even though it was only a demo, it set a bar for what psychological horror could achieve. Since then, countless indie horror titles have taken inspiration from it, but none have carried the same mystique or influence. This is why every frame of OD is being measured against PT. The first-person perspective, the confined environments, the emphasis on sound cues like the knock, and the redacted imagery all feel like echoes of that teaser. Even if OD has nothing to do with PT in terms of narrative, the stylistic and atmospheric DNA is undeniable. At the same time, it's important not to assume OD is simply PT reborn. PT was deliberately small scale. It wasn't a full game, just a mysterious introduction designed to build hype for Silent Hills. OD is aiming for something much bigger. Kojima has positioned it as an anthology horror project with different segments potentially directed by different creators, each exploring unique fears. That alone makes it very different from PT, which had one unified setting and tone. There's also Kojima's ambition to create what he calls a new form of media. With OD, he's blending film, game design, and experimental interactivity. The use of Unreal Engine 5 and cloud technology hints that OD might even incorporate features beyond traditional single-player storytelling, perhaps tapping into asynchronous or evolving elements. Kojima has warned that the game will divide audiences. Some will love it, and some will hate it. That's not the language of someone trying to recreate PT. It's the language of a creator determined to push the medium into uncharted territory. Here's where I want to share my own opinion. PT being cancelled was a huge deal, not just because the project was exciting, but because of what happened to Hideo Kojima afterward. The circumstances around his split with Konami were ugly, and frankly, what happened to him was wrong. PT was meant to be nothing more than a demo, but it carried so much promise that people still held on to it as one of the greatest horror experiences ever made. That's why people are looking at OD as what Silent Hills could have been like if it hadn't been cancelled and if Kojima had been allowed to finish what he started. Kojima's track record speaks for itself. With the Metal Gear Solid series, he proved he could create ambitious boundary-pushing games that redefined genres. With Death Stranding, he showed he wasn't afraid to take risks even if it meant dividing opinion. I think he deserves a real chance with OD, and I believe fans who were excited by PT will give him that chance. There's a sense of unfinished business here, and OD might finally be the closure players have been waiting for since Silent Hills was taken away from us. Looking forward, there are several intriguing possibilities for OD. The knock itself could serve as a central mechanic, a recurring signal that something is about to shift or break through. It might be used to link different anthology segments, acting as the connective tissue between stories. Each segment could present horror in a unique way, some focusing on atmosphere, others on puzzles, and others on raw terror. The integration of cloud technology suggests that OD might not always play the same way twice. Imagine a game where subtle details shift depending on when or how you play, or where certain events are influenced by online factors. Kojima has always loved breaking the fourth wall and surprising players, so OD could be his chance to use modern infrastructure in unsettling new ways. The idea of overdosing on fear also raises fascinating questions about player agency. Will the game test players' willingness to keep going? Will it use discomfort as a mechanic, pushing boundaries not just of gameplay but of emotional endurance? And if OD is indeed an anthology, will these stories connect into a larger narrative or remain isolated explorations of different fears? OD is shaping up to be one of the most ambitious and unpredictable horror games of this generation. The comparisons to PT are understandable and in many ways unavoidable. But while PT set the foundation, OD looks poised to take horror in directions that weren't possible a decade ago. It has the star power, the technology, and most importantly, the creative drive of a director who still has something to prove. For me, OD isn't just another horror game announcement, it feels like Kojima's second chance. The knock has already been heard, and the door to something new is about to open. The real question is, are we ready to step through it? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments whether you think OD will live up to PT's legacy or carve out something completely new. Until next time, I'll see you in the darkness.